Hi everyone, I wanted to make a video paying tribute to the work of Phil Spector, who we just found out died. We just learned this news. I believe he died yesterday, and the news is just really coming over now. He was 81 years old, and I believe died in prison. And, you know, it's a very controversial topic, and Phil Spector, a very controversial producer, because the question is, do you make a video? Do you even pay attention or acknowledge somebody who was a convicted murderer? I'm of the belief that it doesn't take away from an artist's work if you like his work. So that's why I decided to go ahead with this video. So let's celebrate the man's work. By all accounts, Phil Spector's a genius, was a genius. You're going to remember the past tense, was a genius. And one of the greatest producers of all time, in my opinion. I would agree with that. For the most part, I like his work. I like the sound, what became known as the wall of sound that he was able to accomplish. So a brilliant producer, not a very nice person, to put it mildly. And there were a lot of stories of him raising all kinds of hell during recording sessions, in the 50s and 60s, and things that happened between him and Ronnie Spector. And when he worked with the Ramones, remember the Ramones talking about him being really crazy in interviews that I saw on a documentary. And he used to bring guns into the studio and fire guns and things like that. So an unstable personality. Some people say he might have had what's known as Napoleon complex, being a extra short guy. I don't know. But the purpose of this video is to honor the work. So I have some things here that I thought I would share. Okay, I pulled out the ones I could think of. I mean, here's A Christmas Gift for You. Phil Spector produced a really nice Christmas record that's been re-released in various forms. And, he started out producing the Teddy Bears, the Ronettes, the Crystals, and so on. And I think he worked along with Sonny Bono in the early days. Sonny Bono kind of got his start from Phil Spector. And there's some photos back there of Phil working with the artists. So this is a highly worthy album. And of course, Beatle fans know that Phil Spector was called in to salvage the tapes of the Get Back sessions, which became Let It Be. And the way the album was released, some people didn't like it, especially Paul McCartney, who at the time did not like what Phil had done to his song, The Long and Winding Road, putting strings arrangements on the song and changing it up like that without even checking with him, really. And I got to tell you, though, folks, I've always been a fan of the officially released version as it came out with Phil Spector. I think he did a great job on The Long and Winding Road and Across the Universe. I think he really, really brought a lot of these songs to life, and some of the Beatles were happy. I think John was happy at the time. I think John said that he was fond of Spector's work, but not his personality, which is pretty much what a lot of people have said. So I've always liked what Phil Spector did with Let It Be. And John was such a fan. He worked with Phil many times in his solo career, and one of John's greatest singles, Instant Karma, produced by Phil Spector. Just enough production here not to kill it, in my opinion, just enough to make it really boisterous and loud and solid, and the usual, the wall, but not overpowering. I think it's John's best single, Instant Karma. And of course, the Imagine album. John had also worked with Phil Spector on the debut album, John Lennon Plastic Ono Band. Not so much influence with Phil on that, really, but you could feel it a little bit. And of course, there's a lot of footage for these sessions, John recording with Phil in the studio. And then you look, produced by John and Yoko and Phil Spector, sometime in New York City. Phil even made the cover there. To know him is to love him, it says. Okay. John quickly learned that didn't really apply anymore, because when he was trying to do his rock and roll album, his album of rock and roll oldies, a lot of controversial stuff happened. You know, Phil ran off with the tapes. This is the rock and roll album as it came out ultimately in 1975. You know, John had to go back and re-record some stuff and produce stuff himself. And so this is produced by Phil Spector, arranged by John and Phil Spector. It says here on the album, October 73 to December 73. Then another production note says, produced and arranged by John Lennon from October 21 to 25, 74. So it started out with Phil Spector helping out here, but he did all kinds of things. He ran off with the John Dean tapes, as John Lennon called it. In the BBC interview, December the 6th, 1980, John Lennon really talks about how crazy Phil was at this particular time. And he used to say, oh, Phil had a car crash or something like that, you know. And then later on told that he really had gone completely bonkers and kind of like took the tapes, you know. But we can't leave out one of the most important of all Phil Spector works, producing George Harrison's All Things Must Pass in 1970. And you either love it or you hate it, what Phil's done on this album. I think we're now, as I'm making this video, very excited about the possibility and maybe likelihood that there's going to be a special anniversary edition of this album coming out, maybe this year, where you're going to maybe get some of the tracks de-spectorized. In fact, we've already heard the tracks released. I think one of them was of the title track, All Things Must Pass, without the influence of Spector, without the wall of sound of Spector on here. But I always thought that in this crazy way, having Phil Spector's kind of muddy-ish sound on here, layered sound on this album, kind of gives All Things Must Pass its personality. It's the way we've heard it for 50 years. So in a way, would All Things Must Pass really be All Things Must Pass if it ever got cleaned up to the point where Spector's influence was taken off? There's certain songs that really make you curious to hear what they'd sound like if they were without the Spector touch. Stuff like Wah Wah, which is very heavy and drenched in wall of sound. Kind of drowns out a lot of the vocals, such as they are. And also a song on here called Awaiting on You All is also very heavy. Those are the ones that really strike you. But overall, as I say, I think this album, it's part of its personality is because of what we got from Phil. I do have a curiosity, an interest to hear this, if they can ever kind of strip it down a little bit of that production. That remains to be seen whether we're going to get that. But that's all I really want to say. I want to pay tribute to Phil Spector's genius, his great work as a producer. And that's it, really. So I wanted to just bring that up, make sure I had a video to celebrate that, because I am, in ways, a fan of Phil Spector's production. Thank you, everybody.